Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I am very excited to have on Caitlyn Gladding. Well, actually, I've known her whole life. Her mother and I have been friends since the fourth grade, and it has been an honor to actually watch Caitlyn grow up. And she is an amazing adult now, and she is living a partial dream of mine, which is to be a farmer slash grower slash educator and all the things. So I am really excited to have you on, Caitlyn. How are you today?
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me on. It is so crazy how long we've known each other through all
I
the
know.
phases of life. And yeah,
I
I'm
know.
happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Caitlin's my plant lady also. When I need good plants or plant advice, I go to Caitlin immediately. So I want to first just introduce you to everybody so that everybody can get to know you. How have you kind of gotten where you are today? It's not like you woke up and you just knew how to grow stuff. So what has your journey been?
Sure. It's a long one for sure. So, I mean, when I grew up, I was not a gardener. I did not enjoy playing in the dirt. I was not like I was pretty much dirt adverse until like late college, honestly. And my I studied environmental studies in college. My senior year, I took a sustainable agriculture class as like an elective. And in that class, they taught us how to plant a garden and maintain it throughout the season. And I remember the first thing that we were able to harvest from the garden was green beans right before Thanksgiving, but everyone else had already gone home for Thanksgiving break. So I remember going to the garden and being like, I did not plant these. I did not take care of them. I'm gonna harvest all of that. Like I was emotionally supportive of them. Because I still like just wasn't really super into it. However, from that internship, from that class, I really discovered like that eating is something that every human does 3 times a day, and that our food system is quite, you know, I don't want to say it's broken because it's working exactly the way that it is designed to work, but it doesn't
It
work.
is broken. It is broken. I'm going to say it. It is, but
Um,
that's okay.
So, that was really like my deep dive into food systems. Where are we at? What's happening with our food? And what can we do about it?
I love
And there, I did a couple of internships with the city of Winter Park and with the planning firm, really just trying to see all of the different aspects of where does our food coming from? Who's making these decisions? Like where is there wiggle room? And after I graduated, I moved home from college back in with my parents. And the day that I moved home, my brother and father were disassembling a half pipe that they had built in the
that.
backyard. And my dad was heading out to go buy a bunch of sod. And I was like, no, I just learned that like sod was the devil and sod is like the root of all evil. And we had this huge plot that was just like vacant dirt. And I was like, well, we're gonna go to the mushroom farm and we're gonna get a truckload of compost. And my parents, I think, were like, what? Like this, who are you? What is this? But I just felt like, I had just spent a couple years like learning all of this, and I felt like I wanted to see if I could walk the walk. Um, and that garden was amazing. Some other members of my family ended up getting invested in it. And
I do remember that. I remember your mom being like, I don't know what she wants to grow this garden. I was like, let her,
I
like,
mean, yeah, I
let
think
her do
everyone
it.
was like,
I want to
shocked.
stop you for 1 second because a lot of my listeners are moms and a
Okay.
lot of us have college age kids. And one of the things that I want to point out is that as you were going through school, this is not even where you thought you were going to be, right? But just
100%.
by taking the one class, and I am often saying to my kids, college is about trying on things. Just
100%.
like with health and wellness, you've got to try on a bunch of things before you can figure out what works for you because everybody's bio-individual.
Hmm.
So when it comes down to, I think when we grew up, it was like you went to college, you went for one specific thing, you did those classes, you got out, you
Hmm.
went to that job, and then you were like, you either liked it or you were like, ugh, this is not for
Yeah,
me. And then you're like, now what? And I just like, I've encouraged my kids to take classes in different things because again, you don't know what you don't know until you're
totally.
exposed to it. So, and I remember one of the internships you did, which I thought was amazing. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but where you were going to different restaurants in
Hmm.
the local Winter Park area,
Yes.
and you wanted to, see where they were getting their food from. And I think that's so important because in a society that we live in where not a lot of people cook and we are really going out to eat a lot
Mhm.
and we're quote unquote trying to be healthy, when you're not making your own food, it is really hard to know what you're actually ingesting.
A
And
hundred
so,
percent.
what did you learn just from the local places? I think where you're at, where school was located, was more of had the thought forward of like farm to table maybe
Yeah.
concept.
This was like the very kind of impetus of the farm to table movement. I mean, it was definitely out west, and I think we were in the efforts of bringing it over here. You know, it was just like becoming really trendy and cool. And the city of Winter Park was doing a local foods assessment just to kind of evaluate where, you know, where are we at? And
Okay.
so during my internship, I actually just walked down Park Ave and walked into different restaurant owners or restaurants and tried to meet with the owner or the chef and find out like, are you buying locally? If so, what are you buying? If not, why aren't you? And just to kind of really get a better understanding of like, in our head, it seems so logical and so easy. So why isn't this happening? I think that was super eye-opening to start to see things on like a systemic level of like, oh, this is so much bigger than us. Like this is food distributor, there's like food distributors. And, you know, I mean, just it was so much bigger than what I was going to do or what the city was going to do. And so I think that it was during that time where I started to realize like this is a big this is a big thing. There's a lot of opportunity here. So
Mm.
um and I was interested in it. And so I think that's where I was like, okay, I want to dive deeper in this. And I think there could be a future in this field and in this industry because I'm starting to see how broad these, you know, issues are.
Issues. Yeah.
Sorry. Um, so yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And I'm really glad that you took that class because I think where you're sitting, you're a world kind of changing type of mentality, like you're ready
Yeah.
to make change. And I think the more people that have that kind of mindset is what's actually going to make a change and a difference in our food systems. And we do need a revamping of our food systems from the very top
Hmm.
all the way down.
Hmm.
And so when you decided that this was kind of the way that you were going to go,
Hmm.
did you just make the choice to put a garden in your backyard and then start there? Or what was the thought process of getting into the job in
Garden.
which you do today? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know how to turn my dinging off on my. Can you hear it? Okay. Um, okay, so after I graduated and did my garden, I fell in love with it and really became more of a mental health thing. Like the gardening became saved my life. Having that like place to go into every single day after work, after school, after whatever, and just decompress and touch the dirt and connect with nature and see these systems, it just it completely saved me in a time where I had no idea what my future held. I just graduated. I didn't have a job. I didn't even know what a job could be. And so all I knew was I like this. This is so valuable to me. This has changed my life. How can I bring this joy and this experience and this feeling to everyone else? Because if everyone else was doing what I'm doing when they get home from work, A, we would feel really good. B, we'd be connected, you know, all of these things. And so I did 1 year of AmeriCorps Vista service, which is essentially like the Peace Corps in America, but you only do 1 year and it's local. So that was a youth after school gardening program in partnership with the city of Orlando. So really getting into like working with multiple community centers, doing weekly garden education with kids. I loved that. That was only 1 year. And then from there, I went to work for the University of Florida IFAS Extension Office, which I will absolutely plug any day. They're an amazing resource for anyone interested in gardening. They have an office in every single county. They have agents who are, you know, there to help you figure out how to do, you know, gardening. And I spent 5 years in that office doing food systems work. So I was a food systems specialist. I worked regionally with multiple counties, helping to implement policy systems and environmental changes to make fresh food access more accessible to communities. So a big part of that was school gardens. Another big part of that was working with large scale farms to connect them with the school systems and actually change the menus and change the purchasing of the school districts. And then the last was working on policy level. So I, was very involved with our local food policy council and seeing where are our barriers to getting more farmers, to getting more accessibility points, and how can we work with the local municipalities to change those. And that was amazing work. And I loved that job and I loved that role. And it was great. And then COVID came and that really took a hit. I went from like being out in the field, working with community partners and, just being a change maker to being tied behind a computer screen during COVID, as we all were. And that was super, super hard for me as someone who has passion, has skills, is driven, is, change oriented. When I saw this opportunity for people to make a change during this time. And people were, there was a kind of a resurgence of people wanting to get interested in gardening. And I was like, I have this knowledge, I have the skills, like, let me just see. I had always kind of thought about starting my own business, but it was obviously incredibly intimidating and a lot of work. And I didn't know if I was up for it, but it felt like, COVID was a crazy time. So if I was ever going to go for it, like, let's just do it. So I started out just doing some gardens for my friends and family. Actually, my first garden was just at my mom's house. We built one for Mother's Day and we put in some raised beds and my dad didn't help us. It was just, the girls that did it. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And yeah, their initial response was great. And so I slowly kind of started to build that. And then I left my role at IFAS in the fall of 2020. And I was doing Grow Your Soul. And sorry, this is like a long-winded journey. At the same time, I was also getting my master's in public health. I started to see in the food system, we can kind of, I don't know how to like organize these thoughts, but
you're good.
When I was working in the food system space, I started to see a shift in where the money was coming from in change making. So we started to see a lot of healthcare companies, insurance companies investing big bucks in community health prevention initiatives, specifically related to food accessibility and food production.
Yeah, I
And
want to stop there because I
okay,
think a lot of people don't know that for
okay,
sure. And I think that, and I honestly didn't know it myself. And it actually gave me a little goosebumps to hear that you see that or saw that side of things, because I do think a lot of we know that money talks, and we
yeah,
know that a lot of people sit on other people's boards, and it's kind of a little bit corrupt, in my opinion, behind the scenes. And a lot of Americans don't see that. So for you to sit and say something positive, I really love that, because I think a lot of the negatives always talked about and not really the
yeah,
positive. So it is about what you're about to say, I think, but it is about changing, reframing where the bigger people are putting their money
yes,
to then help others be able to have access. And I'm huge with schools, just from coming from a
yeah,
teaching background. And the school lunches, breakfast and lunch, are sometimes the kids' only food.
yep,
And in I know it's shifted a little bit. I know we're making small steps forward, but there needs to be a bigger revamping in what the kids are being served, because we expect the children to come to school, and I'm just talking about littles,
yep,
and this goes for bigs also, but we're expecting these children to come to school to sit in their seat to learn, yet some of the food is packed with, I'm just going to use dyes, for example, packed with dyes, and red dyes for a lot of people give kind of the reaction of hyperactivity. So then it's like we're expecting our kids to sit and focus and learn, but yet we're feeding them things that aren't really feeding their microbiome, feeding their brain,
sure.
and all those things. So I love to hear that there are some people investing in that. It's just, how do we get
Sure.
them to be changed? It is 2024, so I feel like it should be happening a little faster. And that's just
It
my,
is, and part of the other reason why I felt like it was time for me to transition out of my role at IFAS was because I had been in that position for 5 years, feeling the same frustration that you just said, and realizing that I alone, even with someone who this was my mandate to work on this, was fighting the most large uphill battle of so many different systems. And I realized that I wasn't ever going to really move the needle to any significant level, because the multiple levels of systems are all fighting against each other to achieve the goal of healthier, more nutritious, and tasteful school lunches. So I got burnt out. I
Yeah.
just got really burnt out because I care so much, which is like such a curse in this industry. Like it's really hard to be so passionate. And so, yeah, you are 100% right that all those are challenges that our food system is up against. The people that I will advocate for are the folks that are actually at the county level that are doing school lunches. They are really the ones that have very limited decision-making power. And I've met every school food director, in a 10 county radius of here, and all of them genuinely deeply care about providing the best, most nutritious, high quality lunches and breakfasts and suppers for their kids. They really, really do. And they are doing the absolute best they can with the extremely limited financial ability that they
Yes.
have, with the resources that are given to them by their food service provider. And, they're the bottom of the barrel. So
Absolutely.
all of those
Absolutely.
issues that you're addressing are like federal, or not federal, but like national policy level changes
Yes.
that it will take not only, them to be made at the national level, but those changes are not going to be made unless broad scale, um, you know, bottom up,
Pretty much.
people are demanding it.
Correct.
And we can't demand it through boycott because the kids have to eat,
True.
so you can't put your money where
Well,
your
one
mouth.
of the
Like,
things,
yeah,
and this is off subject a little bit, but it really does have to do with farming, is glyphosate. And there's a girl who, well, there's a national, it's like, I can't remember the name of it, Moms with America or something like that. But then the girl who I know, her name, she goes by Glyphosate Girl. Her name's Kelly. But they went to the Congress last week or the week before. They had 3 days of meetings with all legislative people, and they brought all their testing, all their school lunch testing,
yeah,
and showed like results. And they literally had no clue because
yeah,
they're being fed something, by one particular, people or whatever. So they were kind of happy with all the meetings, saying that these people were just unaware. And I think that's a lot of it. It's just being unaware of what actually is happening in the different parts of everything.
sure.
And once people can speak up, right, and
Mhm.
start educating, I think it all starts, with education.
Yeah, I agree. And I think awareness is definitely, the first step. But I think the reason why a lot of these policies are in place is actually because of like just massive lobbies from these industries. So
Yes.
it's really
Yeah, it's
it's
complicated.
a money problem. So unless
100%.
the anti-glyphosate people are gonna lobby the government more than the pro-glyphosate people, they'll lose every year to that legislation, in my opinion. Like that's what it comes down to, fortunately. I would like
Maybe.
to hope
Let's say,
not,
I mean,
but
yes, at this point, yes, but I'm going to have hope that more people that, bring it up, more people that talk about it, more people that educate, more people that get a voice
sure.
and show their voice, you know, again, it's possible. It's not an overnight thing. It is possible. It's just going to take a lot of digging. But what I love that you did though is you took something you knew, right?
Mhm.
And you did it well, and you got burned out for the very reasons why I can see a lot of people do. But what I
Mhm.
loved is that you didn't just stop there. You actually took it home, right? You took it to where who controls what, right? We
Yes.
control the food we put on our table for ourselves and our family. And that's really where I feel like you have brought it back to. You've brought it back to the roots of home, because
Mhm.
when we grow something on our own, and we know the conditions that people, grow, or the conditions in
Yeah,
which things are grown, then we definitely know what we're ingesting. And I think that's,
absolutely.
for our health, the most important thing is knowing your ingredients, knowing where things come from if you're not growing things, but also knowing that growing things is a possibility. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because it's not like you grew up in a farming family.
No.
You just had an
It's like funny to
experience.
even
You
say that that's, like no, like hard no.
Yeah, but a lot of people who run farms are brought up, it's like
Of
the
course.
history of their family. And, Delaney and I just had this conversation. She's like, everybody in my classes have farms. And I'm like, but not everybody starts out like that. You just have to find your pocket of people that are
Totally.
just starting, for the first time. But with that being said, if someone's listening
Hmm.
and they've never started a garden before, they never thought about buying locally, they never thought about a CSA, they just haven't gone there yet. What are some tips and tools that you can talk about that would help somebody, number one, understand what a CSA is?
Hmm.
Number two, why is it important to maybe buy locally rather
Sure.
than, from a long travel?
Hmm.
Um, and then I know people will have, opinions about local versus organic. And what I have learned, which again, you can correct me on this, is when I would go to farmers markets back in like 2006, 7,
Hmm.
I would say, are you guys an organic farm? And they would mostly say, we can't afford to be organic because
Yeah.
it's a 7-year process and whatever,
Right.
but these are the practices we use. You're more than welcome to come visit our farm. We don't use this. So I think connecting with the person who's growing your food, if it's not an organic farm, and even if it is organic, I still think you should connect with people
Yeah.
if you have the opportunity and the possibility to do that. So
Yeah. I think everyone, through their own education will define what their personal like ethos is around eating and buying food. Mine currently stands at like local would be priority to organic. For that exact reason, getting to know your local grower is the number one easiest, I would say, like barrier to entry in changing your diet and changing your food system. So literally going to your local farmers market and going up to any vendor that's selling vegetables and say, hi, like, I want to buy your vegetables. Tell me about your farm. Are you the grower? Like, what are some of the practices that you guys use? Are you ever open to the public? Do you give farm tours or, and a lot of farmers are very proud of what they do and are happy to share their hard work with others. That is why they do it. So if it's a grower, they will normally talk your ear off about what they do. But I think what you might find is that a lot of the produce vendors at farmers markets are really resellers, where they're not growing their produce at all. So the first thing would be to shop around to local farmers markets and just start talking to people, start chatting. That's a great way to build community and learn and um become invested. And then the second thing I think the second thing would be to become a member of a CSA. So once you find a local farmer, most of our local growers offer something called a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And this is essentially you becoming a member of this farm and you're investing in this farmer, you're investing in this grower saying, thank you for what you're doing. I believe in you. I value you. I want to support you. And so what you end up doing is basically upfront for the growing season, you buy a share of that farm. You give them a financial amount, whatever it may be for the season. And you're saying, whatever happens, I'm on board. I support you. And in return, you're going to get, a share of that farm every week. So depending on the size of the share, a handful of items that they grow, fresh, locally grown, that you're going to get in return for your investment. That being said, if you become a CSA member in the fall and we get a hurricane and that farm floods out for 3 weeks, you're not getting any produce for 3 weeks. But that farmer is still going to be working their butt off to make sure that they're doing things in the best way possible to grow the local food economy and to, grow things the proper way and to get that food on your table. And it's just saying like, this is the trials of farming and, you know, supporting local agriculture. Sometimes we have a hurricane that comes through, and guess what? If that farmer has no income for a month, they might go out of business. And we don't want that. We want the farmers to keep growing. So investing in your local food economy is a great way to do it.
I love that. And I also think, the investment is well worth it because, supporting local businesses and supporting your health is the way I look at it. But what I also think is actually going to a farm, if you've never been to one, I think is a great introduction into how hard these people actually work. Yes, it's their passion and their purpose, and they love it. And, everybody should be in nature and everybody should be touching dirt. Everybody should, use that time after work to decompress rather than, some other things that they might currently have in place for
Mhm.
decompression. But, if we don't know, it's because we just don't know yet. And so
Absolutely.
taking that tour and seeing whenever I go to someone else's farm, because I always say I have a black thumb, but when I go, I get so moved by the fact that, like, when I come to your backyard and you let me pick the carrots out, like, that was so cool because it's not that hard. It is not easy. It's not
Yeah.
easy in the least. I mean, you've got bugs and insects. That's where just my mind goes like, oh no, I would rather, support somebody who knows what they're doing. But just to see that it's possible. And then it's not only that, but the taste of the food
Hmm.
is so different. And
Yeah.
so for anybody listening, if you've never had a locally grown anything produce wise
Yeah.
from a local farmer, challenge yourself this May to go out and find something because the taste is so much different. And
Yep.
there's reasons for that. It's less travel, there's not as many pesticides sprayed, their practices are better, and they're not having shelf life of so long.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be higher in nutrients, they're going to be higher in sugar, they're, all these things just because of the less miles traveled to get to your plate. And so they're going to be tastier just inherently, for
Yeah,
sure.
so good. I love it.
And
So,
I think CSA, real quickly, if
yeah,
CSAs
yeah,
are not an option, like that is not an option for
everybody.
everyone.
Hmm.
So going to the farmer's market, even if you can't, like, and I will say this too, locally grown produce is more expensive than conventional produce for the most part. And so that is a barrier.
Hmm.
So a lot of farmers markets will have incentive programs. So if you are on like SNAP or have an EBT card, a lot of our local markets will actually double your dollars for Florida fresh produce, which is a great incentive that a lot of people don't know about. So that kind of levels the playing field for anyone who may be like limited resource to be able to afford that more nutritious vegetables.
Okay.
And um, and at the very least, going to a farmer's market or going to a farm or seeing what's in your CSA is going to start be allowing you to become aware of seasonality and understanding that, oh, wait, why can't I get arugula in July? And so if your farmer doesn't have arugula in July, do not go to the grocery store and buy arugula in July because
Right.
that means that arugula is coming from Canada, like
Right.
so you can start to kind of see hyper locally what we can have. And even if you can't afford those things at the farmer's market, you can adjust your shopping behaviors at the grocery store so that when you're making those purchases, you're going to still be buying things that are more local. They'll still be more nutritious because they're in season. The grocery stores will
Hmm.
buy local when they can. So if farmers market isn't an option, still just go and walk around, talk to people, and then make those choices when you go to the store, if that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point. And I did a little mini podcast episode on this, a seasonal growing, because I think it's something that has gone to the wayside because of
Yeah.
the convenience of our world, because we think we should get whatever we want when we want it on our doorstep in 2 seconds. So I do want to touch upon, seasonal eating because there is a reason for rotating crops. There is a reason that some things don't
Yeah.
grow. And also our bodies need diversity. And
Hmm.
so when we're eating the same thing every day, all year long, we're
Hmm.
really not feeding our microbiome the way that we should. We're not really
Right.
diversifying the types of nutrients and minerals and things that we could be getting from different foods. And I also think your palate changes. So when you're constantly eating the same thing, when you go eat something new, it is quite, shocking sometimes.
Mhm.
But, there's that thing. It's like you have to eat something 20 times to really know if you
Yes.
like it or don't like it.
Mhm.
So talk a little bit about, what we're coming into the summer season. And so
Yeah.
some things are not grown in the summer. So if you could talk maybe about a handful of things that
Hmm.
for Florida at least, and then wherever you are, you can simply do a Google search, I'm sure, and find
Sure.
what's local for you.
Sure. So I would say from now until we get 100 degrees, like until mid
Tomorrow.
June-ish. It depends on exactly where you are and depends on the farm. They all kind of shut down at different times. You actually have quite a wide variety right now. Like pretty much all of the spring crops are coming into peak season. So your tomatoes, peppers, squashes, zucchini, green beans, all that stuff, like go to the farmer's market. Right now is an amazing time to go to the farmer's market or go to a local farm because they're going to be loaded with diversity and tons of local crops. And then I would say starting like mid to late June through the end of August, end of September, really, you're looking at this is what I grow only in summer, which is eggplant, spicy peppers, black-eyed peas, and sweet potatoes. And that's really limited as far as local stuff.
Okay.
You know, on a small scale. On a large commercial scale, you know, they may have a little more wiggle room, or if you're buying hydroponic stuff, they have, you know, climate control, there may be a little more wiggle room. But broadly during summer, you've got like 4 crops. So just, you know, if you are somewhere in the middle of July and they have black-eyed peas on the menu, order them because they're in season and they're supporting probably a local farm who's trying to, you know, get some black-eyed peas off their hand. Oh, and
Right.
okra. Okra is in season this summer too.
Okay. That's funny. I had somebody comment, because I put a list out for May. I always put like a list out of like what's in season just by the months so people can at least just be aware. And somebody said something about they like everything but the okra. So do you cook okra?
Okra is not my favorite.
Okay.
Personally, I haven't gotten adventurous with cooking it. I've eaten it elsewhere where I've enjoyed it. You know, fried, I will eat it fried and I will eat it pickled.
Okay.
Pickled okra is great. I love pickled okra. I think the key to okra and enjoying it is picking it really small, like only like 3 inches, like 2 to 3 inches. The problem with okra a lot of time, especially when people grow it, is they let it get like 4 to 6 inches and it gets slimy and just the texture kind of goes bad. So if you're going to grow okra or try okra, pick out small ones and get creative with them and have fun with it because
That's awesome. I'm not a big, huge okra cooker myself. And honestly, I think I've only had it fried, to be honest. But it was when she said that yesterday, I was like, I need to actually look up some recipes and try out some other things. I do try to do that when I do go to the grocery store, if whatever is in season, if it's something I've never had or heard of, I will typically try to get at least something, 1 or 2 things per season and give it a whirl.
It's fun to try new stuff.
Sometimes it turns out good. So if you've never grown anything on your own, or if you're like me and you're not super successful, I mean, I will tell you guys, 2 summers ago, I think it might have been maybe even longer, maybe during COVID, I don't know. Delaney and I got adventurous and we planted and we got one pepper.
I remember your one pepper.
Size of, I don't even know, maybe 2 inches. And so it was still so good. But we cut it up and the 4 of us had like one bite. We were dying laughing. We're like,
so funny.
We're not going to survive. But where I am more successful and where if you're not into growing quite yet, or if you're not good at it, the herbs, I definitely can do herbs a little bit better.
Sure.
And I will say there's something about walking outside to my little herb things and cutting some off and using it in my food. I don't know. It just feels like I'm a farmer, you know, I'm going on, I'm like, look at me, I'm putting my own stuff.
You put your overalls on before you go out there?
I do. Yeah. But so if you're somebody who's like, oh, this sounds interesting, but I have no idea where to start, I would highly suggest starting with a few herbs just because you'll find success most of the time. And then you'll be more encouraged to do other things. Now, one of the other reasons I did want to have Caitlyn on is because she is very experienced in not only growing her own gardens, but she does help others. I love the fact that she goes into schools and she works with homeschool kids and she goes into different places and she teaches people. And I think that's the most important thing for change, is really just educating others and making them aware of what's possible and what's out there and what's healthier than not. And so with what Caitlyn does, you know, she creates builds beds and she can either do your gardening for you or she can teach you how to do it along. So it just explains sort of like the business that you created for yourself. Because again, I love how you're coming in at bottom.
Yep.
And
usually below the baseline, usually.
No, I'm going to say I'm going to say the bottom, but I'm going to say the bottom's the most important because families are feeding, as moms and dads are feeding their children.
Yeah.
It's a cycle. So if we can start in the home by making a few changes,
totally,
then your kids will continue that cycle. Hopefully, as they grow up, it will become sort of second nature.
Yeah. And I'm honestly super hopeful that that is the case. Like, I'm always really impressed when I work with kids of any age level. Like, they already have a pretty good understanding of gardening compared to any of us, you know, like, or any of us out at that age.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Grow Your Soul is my gardening company. We provide edible garden installations and education. And our goal is to really meet you exactly where you are at. We are a pretty customizable company. If you have a space in your yard that, is good for a garden, we'll come out and do a consultation, and then we'll create a design, and we actually do the full service install with you. So we build the raised beds because we have to build up usually here in Central Florida because of our sandy soil. We can put in irrigation, we bring the soil, we bring the plants, and then we either maintain it for you so you just get to enjoy it, or we'll come back on a monthly basis and teach you, go through a full season with you and get you to your first harvest. So that's really our main goal with each new client that we bring on, is to get them to their first harvest of a season. And our whole philosophy is really that 90% of gardening, successful gardening, happens before you put your first seed in the ground. So if we can get you the right soil in the right place in your yard, and we're planting the right seeds at the right spacing in the right time of year, I mean, you are 90% there. It's just like watering and bugs from here on out, which is difficult, but that is teachable and doable. So really getting you set up from the beginning with all the right materials, and then, getting you to your first harvest. And then we're here to help along the way. But I really like going back to what you said about, when I got burnt out at IFAS. I was working on like a large scale systems level, and that work is really important, and there need to be people doing that work. I did it for as long as I could, and I decided that it was going to be more impactful for me to start working with people on the individual level.
Mhm.
And, how can I meet each individual family with where they're at and their needs and their home, and show everyone that you are not born with the black thumb. Gardening is a learned skill. I did not once know how to grow a single thing in my life. I do not call myself like an expert, but like I just have learned how to do
Mhm.
this, and you can learn it too. So really empowering people to feel like this is something that they can do. This is not hard. It does not take hours of your time every single week. It is not like unachievable. You can have a small garden in your home, and you can supplement what you're buying at the grocery store, at the farmer's market. And if it doesn't make it, besides the impact it's going to make on the nutrition of your household, it's going to make an impact on your mental health and on how you're buying at the store, and how, just the whole thing. It's like a tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it's getting back to nature. It's getting back to whole foods, real eating, how it was once done, because that's the best place, I feel, in my opinion. It's the best place to create better health from. And you're right, it's not just about what's going in your body. It is about the mental part of it. And, getting that release and connecting with nature and touching the dirt. It goes far beyond just throwing dirt around. I mean, there
Oh,
really
yeah.
is true science and facts and people's health behind, again, just connecting with nature and
Mhm.
growing your food, sitting down at your table and thanking the farmer for growing your food, sitting down and thanking yourself, right? I mean, that goes a long way. So again, there's not an expectation from this episode that you walk away and flip your entire house and, only eat out of your garden. But it's just about being aware of the opportunities and the possibilities that are out there. And someone like Caitlyn is pouring into families and pouring into individuals who are eager to learn
Mhm.
and and want to create this kind of an environment for them and their families
Mhm.
as they grow in life. And I think that's super important.
Yeah.
And I do really agree with you on the fact that this younger generation, 20s, they are much more educated because of all of the inundation of what they see. But, I think on this particular matter, them watching and seeing it's that this part's good, right? It's not
Right.
all social media and stuff is good, but to see some people doing, you know, things to better their health,
Right.
I do think that's
I mean, I think about this all the time because I think we forget how far we've come, and
mhm,
even with like your own kids, I don't know, like I think about this. I have much younger siblings, we're 9 and 11 years apart. They're younger than me. And um, I grew up eating solely chicken fingers and Kraft macaroni and cheese and canned green beans for 18 years of my life. Like, and A, I survived. B, I was healthy, and look at me, like I am here now. And so I would say like my biggest thing that I care about now and that I try to communicate is that like, do not, how do I want to say this? You have to give yourself grace with
Absolutely.
everything about this. You're changing your eating behavior and your purchasing behavior is very, very, very hard. We are emotionally very, very connected to food. It is an emotional thing. It's a multi-generational thing. It is really, really, really hard to make these changes. And what drives you to make those changes is going to be completely different than what it drives your daughter and what drives your neighbor and what drives everyone. So what I really try to do with my clients is find out like, what is their why? Why do you want to do this? And let's focus on that aspect of it, because there's 100 different whys and they're all valid and they're all going to eventually spill into one another, but we have to meet people with where they're at right now. And so you don't have to care about every single issue right now, because we don't want you to get burned out. We don't want you to be overwhelmed. We want you to feel empowered to make change where you can. And in order to do that, you have to feel good. You have to feel strong, and you have to feel like you can do something about it. Exactly. So really, I try not to overwhelm people and just meet them where they're at.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you just said all of that, because you need to keep preaching that, because it's all about the 1% shifts. And that's what my podcast is about. That's my philosophy in life.
Yeah.
You cannot overhaul your life overnight. It's an impossibility. And I always say, look at how many years you've been doing something one way. It's just impossible to redo everything overnight. So it is picking, where are you starting from? What is your why, and where do you want to go, and why do you want to go there? What are you trying to feel when you get there? And then we back it up and we try to feel that every day. And if it's important to you, if it's something you've been looking for to, maybe change the type of food or quality of food, or, wanting to just get more local, whatever your curiosity is, if that's what it is, we're not saying, never go to the grocery store again. It's just what this week, or, whenever you grocery shop, what's one thing you can find that's local, or go to your farmer's market on a Saturday, make it a ritual, go every Saturday morning.
Go once a month. Like, it's okay.
Right,
yeah. Like do
that's
one.
Right. It doesn't have to be true. Exactly. Whatever you can, but just get somewhere. But that's going to open up your eyes. And the more you do things, the more they become habitual. And then that's where change happens. It's not going to happen because you wake up and say, ooh, I'm going to have a garden in my backyard. It's like, yes, you can, but what's your why? And what are all the parts and pieces that are going to go into getting that garden there? Right. Or if you're not a gardening type of person, having somebody do it, or joining a CSA, or going to the farm. There's like so many options. And when she's talking about everybody's why being different and everybody coming from a different place, that's called bio-individual. And so what makes me tick is different than what makes, Caitlyn tick, which is what, different from you. But when you're looking at health in general, you've got to pick one thing and kind of start there. And it should always go back to a feeling. Whatever you're trying to accomplish should always be because I'm going to feel a certain way. And that could be excited. It could be feeling better within yourself. It could be, less bloating, whatever it is your why is. And I think, it's important not to just follow the masses, follow what feels right for you. And that's where the change will actually be sustainable. And that becomes a lifestyle.
100%. 100%. I agree. I think too that I think I was really committed to like, I'm going to change the world when I was 22, which is amazing. And every 22-year-old should feel that way and go out and do that work as long as you can, as hard as you can. Like, that's awesome. But I think the way maybe I went about doing it at first was like barking at everyone and being like, like I remember when I came home, like my parents would throw the banana peel in the trash can and I would be like, why isn't this in the compost? And I would get angry, or, I would snap. And these were my things that I cared about. And instead of like just living my life and doing the things I care about and minding my own business, I think it maybe deterred some people along the way because I was so intense with what my views are. And like not recognizing that everyone has their own thing. Like, so what you just shared, like, you're passionate about dyes and glyphosate and those things. Those are not my
Your
my
things.
soapboxes, but
Mhm.
I understand why people feel that way. However, we both want the exact same thing. So if I'm going to sit
Absolutely.
here and advocate, I don't care about glyphosate, I don't care about red dye, then I'm actually deterring you from reaching a shared goal that we have.
Hmm.
So understanding that like you have your why, you can learn about other people's why, but like hating on other people's why and like shaming them because it's not the same why as yours, you're going to actually slow down change. And the best way to really make long-term change is to be the change. Like you have to live your life as the best example, and people will pick up on things and they'll notice you and they'll look up to you and they'll be like, oh, I like the way she does this, or they, whatever. And that is the best way, I think, to become like a role model for change. Is just you living out your life in the best way that you feel like you can.
100%. And I love, I mean, that's all very quotable and very good because again, other people are in a different place than where we're at. And
Mm.
where you're at, where I'm at, where she's at, where she's at, everybody has their own thing going on. And I think when you can recognize that how we show up is how we're going to show up and how they show up is how they're going to show up. And that's okay. But like you said, we both have a common goal.
Mhm.
And some people will resonate with what you're doing, and some people will resonate with what she's doing. It's like that's what makes the world go round. If everybody did everything the exact same way,
Right.
it would be a really boring life, right? It would be a boring world and all of the things. I'm just more, I like to educate for people to advocate for themselves. Think
Totally.
about yourself. It's not a quick fix. It's not a jump on this quick, diet thing because
Yeah.
that's going to make you healthy. That mentality started with a bunch of marketing and, different products that people put out. It's like, no, go inward, get in touch with yourself. What resonates with you? What
Hmm.
makes the most sense for where you're at in your life? And
Yep.
I do think at 22, we have this mentality of, I'm passionate and I want to make change. And I think watching watching your life play out from that age to where you are now, a decade or so, it's as you move through life, everybody, I'm 50, and as you move through from where you're at to when you're 50, you're going to also revamp the way that you think about things. But
Hmm.
what I think is most important is just the education piece because people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And even if you teach them one small thing, that's just opening up Pandora's box for them to get on a learning journey.
Sure.
And so I'm all about learn something every day about yourself and where
Mhm.
you want to be, and that will keep your life rolling in a positive direction.
Love that.
Yeah.
I agree.
So if you're in the local area and you are wanting to perhaps learn, Caitlyn does do little classes around town, so you can get on her mailing list. I'll put everything in the show notes where you can contact her and her social media handles and all of that. And if you're interested in having her, help you grow a garden, obviously that's something she can do. If you're not local, you can follow her on, her social media and at least start educating yourself and then finding people in your area to help you reach your goals, whatever those might be. So as we're leaving the show, from me, I just want to say for this walk away, for your takeaway from this is look at what's local for this season.
Hmm.
Try to incorporate one or two things that maybe you have never incorporated or that is your favorite, just recognizing that it is a seasonal item that's in season right now. But before we end, I do always ask everybody a couple of non-negotiables you have
Mm.
to live your best life. And it does not have to be around health and wellness. Some people, I'm just giving an example, somebody like can't live without their weighted blanket. It can be anything, but just
Okay.
one or two things that makes you wake up and have a good day every day.
Okay. Well, besides coffee, um, just a non-negotiable. I mean, it's really hard for me now to not be near a garden. Like, we have a really good sized garden at our home now. And we're looking at, it's our starter home. It's a small house. We're looking at other houses and going to a house that doesn't have space for a garden, like I physically couldn't live there. So for me, like I need to be in a space that has food growing in it. I don't know why. That's just like it's my soul in my
Yeah.
home. I just need to see it and touch it and feel it and be a part of it. And um, so usually I wake up every morning and I have my coffee and I go in the garden and I spend, the time it takes me to drink my coffee, I'm in my garden. And that is, if the days don't start like that, I have a worse day for sure. Gosh, other than that.
So again, I want to just make a comment about that because, it's about starting your morning in nature.
Yeah.
It's about getting sunlight. These are things that maybe you don't even think about, but it's about getting that sunlight. It's the connection to growing something. It's connecting to something that brings you joy.
Mhm.
It's quiet time. I'm assuming you're not all over your phone and in your work stuff when you're out in the garden. So that's a disconnect from the noise.
Yeah.
Again, very important thing. So your morning routine is one of the things that sets you up for the day. And what I love about your morning routine is it looks really different than my morning routine, right? But each of ours make us have a day that when we walk out for the day, like we're the day of the hustle, you're
Mhm.
in a better headspace.
Mhm.
So my dream is to, not my dream, but eventually when we get to the space where it is appropriate, I would love to have a backyard where I walk out and maybe it's not as massive as yours, but just
Mhm.
have a little plot of something because I love plants and I love to see things grow. And there is something about that
Yeah.
connection just to watching nature do its thing
Mhm.
that brings me joy.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I love it. So, again, as we're walking away today, it is just about those 1% shifts. So, making sure that you become aware of maybe your food systems in your area, becoming aware of the food that you're bringing into your home. Everybody knows I'm huge on ingredient reading because unless you know your ingredients, you don't know really what you're putting in your body,
Mhm.
no matter what the package says on the front. Because let
Right.
me tell you, when you pick up a bag of carrots or when you pull carrots out of your garden, there's not multiple listings of
Right.
ingredients on
Right.
those things. So getting as close to whole as possible is best.
Mhm.
But again, just one small change this week. Pick something that maybe you've never tried before that is in season and give it a try and see if you like it. Maybe you do.
I would just say
So,
start asking questions. Start
yes.
asking questions to
Yeah.
whoever you have so in front of you has food available. If it's your server, if it's the chef, if it's the person
You
that
know,
helps, if it's
I
farmers
do
market.
want to say something about that because I do work with a lot of clients, and we work a lot on eating out because it is part of life.
Yeah.
And, people get so afraid to eat out. And it's like, you can ask, you can say, what do you cook this in? Or does this have X, Y, and Z? If it's something that doesn't really work for your body. Like
Yeah.
we feel afraid to use our voice to ask certain things. And I want to encourage people, use your voice and ask. It's not being rude, but if you are sensitive to something or you're allergic to something, you have to, it's on the menu, right? You have to
Totally.
know, otherwise. So it's the same thing. If you, I had one client who was trying to get away from seed oils, whatever. So she was like, but I don't know what I get when I eat out. I said, well, then ask, you can always ask. And
100%.
that's, you're going to get truth and then you'll know what you're doing.
If they have 30 customers coming into their restaurant asking them, do you use seed oil? I can almost guarantee that they would start to pay attention to that. Or do you buy local produce? Or do you, whatever that question is, if everyone starts asking at restaurants, then the people they are based off
They'll
of
listen.
serving. Yeah. So ask questions to whoever.
And that's on the other thing. It's like we vote with our dollars, where we put our
100%.
dollars and where we talk or don't talk. That's where things start and stop. So
I'm not going to lobby the US government with my $20, but I can absolutely go to the restaurant down the street and I can lobby that way. And that is what I have control over. And so I feel really good about that.
yeah, control what you can control.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a great week and we will talk to you guys soon. Remember to check out the show notes so that you can contact Caitlyn for all your growing needs. We'll talk to you guys later.